Here now are the principles of Sharia banking. Islamic banking has the same purpose as conventional banking, to make money for the banking institute by lending out capital. But because Islam forbids simply lending out money at interest, riba, Islamic rules on transactions known as fiqh al-mu'amalat have been created to avoid this problem. The basic technique to avoid the prohibition is the sharing of profit and loss via terms such as profit sharing, mudaraba, safekeeping wadiyya, joint venture musharaka, cost plus murabaha, and leasing ijar. In an Islamic mortgage transaction, instead of loaning the buyer money to purchase the item, a bank might buy the item itself from the seller and resell it to the buyer at a profit, while allowing the buyer to pay the bank in installments. However, the bank's profit cannot be made explicit, and therefore there are no additional penalties for late payment. In order to protect itself against default, the bank asks for strict collateral. The goods or land is registered to the name of the buyer from the start of the transaction. This arrangement is called murabaha. Another approach is ijara wa iqtina, which is similar to real estate leasing. Islamic banks handle loans for vehicles in a similar way, selling the vehicle at a higher than market price to the debtor and then retaining ownership of the vehicle until the loan is paid. An innovative approach applied by some banks for home loans, called musharaka al-mutanaqisa, allows for a floating rate in the form of rental. The bank and the borrower form a partnership entity, both providing capital at an agreed percentage to purchase the property. The partnership entity then rents out the property to the borrower and charges rent. The bank and the borrower will then share the proceeds from this rent based on the current equity share of the partnership. At the same time, the borrower in the partnership entity also buys the bank's share of the property at agreed installments until the full equity is transferred to the borrower and the partnership is ended. If default occurs, both the bank and the borrower receive a proportion of the proceeds from the sale of the property based on each party's current equity. This method allows for floating rates according to the current market rate, such as the VLR base lending rate, especially in a dual banking system like in Malaysia. There are several other approaches used in business transactions. Islamic banks lend their money to companies by issuing floating rate interest loans. The floating rate of interest is pegged to the company's individual rate of return. Thus, the bank's profit on the loan is equal to a certain percentage of the company's profits. Once the principal amount of the loan is repaid, the profit sharing arrangement is concluded. This practice is called musharaka. Further, mudaraba is venture capital funding of an entrepreneur who provides labor while financing is provided by the bank so that both profit and risk are shared. Such participatory arrangements between capital and labor reflect the Islamic view that the borrower must not bear all the risk cost of a failure, resulting in a balanced distribution of income and not allowing the lender to monopolize the economy. Islamic banking is restricted to Islamically acceptable transactions, which exclude those involving alcohol, pork, gambling, etc. The aim of this is to engage in only ethical investing and moral purchasing. Islamic banking and finance databases provide more information on the subject. In theory, Islamic banking is an example of full reserve banking, with banks achieving a 100% reserve ratio. However, in practice, this is not the case, and no examples of 100% reserve banking are observed. Islamic banks have grown recently in the Muslim world, but are a very small share of the global banking system. Micro-lending institutions founded by Muslims, notably Grameen Bank, use conventional lending practices and are popular in some Muslim nations, especially Bangladesh, but some do not consider them true Islamic banking. However, Muhammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank and microfinance banking, and other supporters of microfinance argue that the lack of collateral and lack of excessive interest in the microlending is consistent with the Islamic prohibition of usury, riba. Islamic banks now position themselves as the moral alternative to Western banks, and 3 in 4 Muslims in England prefer Sharia-compliant banking products over their Western banking counterparts. In Europe, Islamic banking is now reaching beyond the Muslim community, seeking to become the preferred choice of non-Muslims for banking transactions, citing their products and banking ethics are superior to the Western banking system. London alone, some 20% of inquiries into Islamic banking products is now coming from non-Muslims. As Sharia banking becomes increasingly accepted as an alternative to the Western model, the opportunity to spread Islamic ideology to non-Muslims increases. According to Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, a leading Sunni cleric, spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, and head of the Fundamentalist European Council for Fatwa and Research, foresees the introduction of Islamic banking into the West will be the vehicle through which Islam will establish a caliphate, Islamic government rule based on the Quran throughout the world. According to Helena Christofi of the Brussels Journal, replacing Western institutions with a global Islamic order is, in fact, the goal of al-Qaradawi Muslim Brotherhood. According to its founder, Hassan al-Banna, the Brotherhood seeks to reclaim Islam's manifest destiny, an empire founded in the 7th century that stretched from Spain to Indonesia, and it is in 1982 secret plan exhorted its members to channel thought, education and action in order to establish an Islamic power on the earth. The Muslim Brotherhood is a central link between Islamic banking and Islamic fundamentalism. The first Islamic bankers were members of the Muslim Brotherhood who wanted to use the structural power of bank ownership to advance the fundamentalist movement in the Gulf states in the 1970s. Today, its most powerful progeny, the Kuwait Finance House, covertly finances fundamentalist groups in Kuwait and abroad. As Islamic institutions gain a financial foothold in the Western banking and investment community, they could exert political pressure or force these institutions to offer Sharia-compliant banking products, which in turn further solidifies Islamic ideology into the West. Should Sharia banking become the accepted form of commerce in the Western world, the Islamic clerics would have a powerful platform to espouse their ideology and significantly alter how life in the West is lived. The influence and control Sharia banking could impose on life in Europe and the USA, both in the governmental and private sectors, is considerable. And once financial control is wrested from the Western banking system, the golden rule of finance becomes the governor of life. The golden rule of finance simply states, he who has the gold makes the rules. For Europe, it may be too late, and the US isn't far behind unless they wake up. That is why I have repeatedly pointed out that Sharia, in any shape or form, must never be allowed to take root in our democracies, to pollute and soil our soil.